Forgotten, then chosen. Shedeur Sanders' unexpected ascent from Cleveland's shadows to the spotlight. When Shedeur Sanders first touched down in Cleveland at the dawn of 2025, he didn't bring with him the echoes of hype trains or a fanfare of promise. He wasn't the golden child of the franchise. In fact, he was hardly given a seat at the table. He was a fifth-round pick who walked into a building that already had a veteran quarterback, two highly discussed competitors, and a head coach in Kevin Stefanski who seemed unsure whether to even acknowledge the rookie's existence. What Sanders expected was competition. What he got instead was isolation. From day one of Brown's training camp, the former Colorado star found himself trailing on the depth chart, his name typed in smaller font behind NFL veteran Joe Flacco, Reclamation Project Kenny Pickett, and fellow rookie Dillon Gabriel. A quarterback room already tight was suffocated even further when Tyler Huntley joined the mix mid-camp. And amidst that suffocation, Shedeur barely received any first-team reps. He was QB4 in theory, but in practice, he was further down the food chain than any of the Browns' equipment staff dared admit. To understand why this was so confounding, one must remember Shedeur Sanders' college resume. Under the bright lights of Boulder, Colorado, coached by none other than his father, NFL legend Deion Coach Prime Sanders, Shedeur rewrote the script. He was not just a good quarterback. He was great. Over 4,100 yards, 37 touchdowns, and a Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year trophy defined his college swan song. But all of that seemed to vanish in the Cleveland cold. The Browns' decision-makers had other ideas that didn't seem to involve nurturing young talent with patience. The franchise's history with quarterbacks is a tragic anthology: Johnny Manziel's chaos, Baker Mayfield's fall, and countless others who were supposed to be the guy, but became just another jersey number. Into that darkness, Shedeur stepped in with nothing but quiet determination and a cannon for a right arm. And then came the noise. Radio personality Ken Carman of 92.3, The Fan, exploded on his podcast with the kind of criticism that made ripples throughout Ohio. If Shedeur Sanders goes out there and doesn't look good, do I blame him or do I blame the Browns? He asked, frustration lacing every word. You've got a guy with a high ceiling. Why aren't you working with him? The NFL community paid attention. Former Browns QB Robert Griffin III, no stranger to Cleveland's dysfunction, chimed in on X. Shedeur Sanders is being set up to fail in Cleveland, but God's got him showing out even with limited reps. With one tweet, Griffin added weight and authenticity to the growing narrative. Cleveland was botching it again. But something shifted inside Browns headquarters. Quietly, subtly, coaches began giving Shedeur more meaningful snaps. The whispers of "he's looking sharp" turned into wide-eyed glances during 7-on-7 drills. On Camp Day 4, Sanders lit up the field with 3 touchdown passes, including a bullet to rookie wide receiver Luke Floria that dropped jaws and turned heads. He said nothing boastful afterward. When pressed about his limited reps and how that felt, Sanders replied with stoic humility, "That's not my place to answer. I feel like it's not in my control, so I'm not even going to think about that or have that even in my thought process." It was that quiet confidence, combined with demonstrable skill, that began to move the needle. Still, it wasn't enough to convince head coach Kevin Stefanski until fate intervened. First, Kenny Pickett went down with a hamstring injury. Then, Dillon Gabriel followed with a shoulder issue. Suddenly, Stefanski found himself with an unbalanced quarterback group and no choice but to hand over the keys, at least temporarily, to Sanders. On Wednesday morning, the announcement came. Shedeur Sanders would start Friday's preseason opener against the Carolina Panthers. For Sanders, it was the moment he had been working toward in silence, waiting for the window to crack open. For Stefanski, it was a necessary move forced by injuries. But for the fanbase, it was a chance to see what the kid could actually do when handed the real steering wheel of the offense. Shedeur approached it like he always had, with poise. In interviews, he didn't celebrate prematurely. He spoke of control, of readiness, of staying in the moment. That maturity was likely instilled in him not just by his father, but by the hard road he's already traveled. A road where talent doesn't always guarantee opportunity. And in a twist of poetic restraint, Coach Prime, who had been so publicly visible during Shedeur's collegiate career, remained conspicuously silent. There were no celebratory tweets, no behind-the-scenes hype videos, no sideline appearances. That was intentional. Earlier in the off-season, Shedeur had said, "I don't want my dad coming to see me right now. I want to get to where I want to go, then for him to see me. I don't want him to come and see me get a couple reps and he's cheering like a good dad. Nah, you can't be proud of me right now." And so the legend stayed home, and the son stood alone. When Friday night arrived in Charlotte, it wasn't just another preseason game. For Shedeur Sanders, it was an audition, a vindication, and a personal battlefield. From the first snap, he played like he belonged. Quick throws, calm pocket presence, laser-focused reads. The ball came out on time, the huddle was tight, and the drives were smooth. He checked down when needed, pushed the ball when called for, and capped his half with a touchdown pass that cut through Carolina's secondary like a wire. Even Joe Flacco, the grizzled veteran, stood and nodded in recognition. This wasn't just a kid with a big name. This was a quarterback. One with vision, one with control, one with future. With the Browns' regular season opener against the Bengals looming on September 7th, the quarterback competition remains unresolved. Joe Flacco is still the presumed Week 1 starter. Pickett, once healthy, will re-enter the conversation. Gabriel, too. Huntley lurks as a wild card. But now, for the first time, Shedeur Sanders has a real seat at the table. The question no longer is, will Shedeur get a chance? It's what happens if the Browns ignore him again? Cleveland's fanbase, battered and bruised by years of QB letdowns, is watching with cautious optimism. Maybe this time, just maybe, the Browns won't mess it up. Because Shedeur Sanders has done everything right. He stayed patient. He stayed focused. He stayed humble. And when his moment came, he took it with both hands. He's no longer just Deion Sanders' son. He's Shedeur Sanders, NFL quarterback. And he's just getting started. Tested, not gifted. Shedeur Sanders' NFL debut carries the weight of legacy, doubt, and an unshakable will. The sun had barely peeked through the gray clouds over Berea, Ohio on the morning of August 7th when the question was asked. Blunt, unpolished, and deliberate. Do you need to give Shedeur extra reps today, even with the ones, to prepare him for the game? There were no drum rolls, no suspenseful pause, no strategic coach speak. Kevin Stefanski didn't blink. No, one word, cold, direct. And in that instant, the line between gift and test became clearer than ever. For Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion, the most electric cornerback the game has ever known, every move he's made since being drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the 5th round has been both magnified and misunderstood. It's a paradox he's grown accustomed to. His name gets him noticed, but his effort gets him dismissed. His reputation opens doors only for people to question how he got the keys. It's a gift and a curse at the same time, Shedeur once said about his family name. But he's learned to let his work drown out the whispers. Whether it's OTAs, minicamp, or the grueling July practices in the sweltering sun, one thing has remained constant. Shedeur Sanders does not leave the field when others do. On July 29th, he went 9 of 9 in team drills, tossing 2 touchdown passes with precision. While the other quarterbacks drifted toward the locker room to rest and reset, Shedeur stayed out, throwing passes into the wind, alone. 10 minutes, 15, 20. This wasn't new behavior. He'd done the same back in June, lingering on the field nearly a half hour after the final whistle. His grind is now folklore in Berea. To some, it's obsessive. To Shedeur, it's survival. Because when you're the 4th quarterback on a 5-man depth chart, extra time isn't optional. It's the only time. A logjam and a legacy. When the Browns added Tyler Huntley to a quarterback room already brimming with Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders, it sent a message: congestion ahead. Deshaun Watson's expected absence for most, if not all, of the season left a power vacuum behind center. And rather than commit to a rebuild or a rookie, Cleveland doubled down on veterans and variables. Yet Shedeur never blinked. While chaos swirled around the roster, he executed. From day 1 through August 4th, Sanders avoided turnovers in every camp session. He tossed 6 touchdowns and completed 56 of 79 passes. Good for a stunning 70.9% completion rate. For a 5th-round rookie, these weren't just good numbers, they were whispers of greatness. But numbers in training camp only matter so much. The real test begins when the red jerseys come off and the pressure becomes live. Stefanski knows it. That's why, in his view, reps in practice pale in comparison to reps in war. You're obviously not wearing a red jersey, so you're free game in those situations, Stefanski said, referring to the preseason environment. The games, not drills, will show which of these young QBs can take a hit and still deliver. And deliver Shedeur must. The Panthers game, opportunity or optics? As injuries thinned out the quarterback competition, Pickett nursing a hamstring, Gabriel sidelined by a shoulder tweak, Shedeur's moment arrived. Officially, publicly, unequivocally. He will start. August 8th, Browns versus Panthers, the first preseason game. And for Shedeur, it's not just a start, it's a statement. The skeptics, however, haven't disappeared. Some call it a courtesy start, a way to throw the rookie to the wolves under the guise of opportunity. A test, maybe, but one disguised as sabotage. But if that's the narrative, Hall of Fame left tackle Joe Thomas is having none of it. In a powerful statement on the herd, Thomas, a Browns legend respected nearly as much as Jim Brown in Cleveland lore, put the franchise and its critics on notice. Shedeur is a huge star, one of the biggest in college football in years. He's not some nobody. The Browns got him at great value, and they're giving him the same shot they're giving everyone not named Joe Flacco. Thomas's words cut through the noise like a pass through the seam. This wasn't a former teammate hyping up a friend. This was Cleveland royalty throwing his weight behind a rookie whose name often gets treated as a gimmick rather than a gift. He continued, "There are a lot of people who really believe in him. People want to see him succeed. This isn't politics or favoritism. It's football." The calm in the chaos. At Browns camp, where distractions brew like coffee and quarterbacks get sacrificed to the gods of instability, Shedeur Sanders has been the rare constant. He hasn't been dazzling in the headline-grabbing sense. Number 80-yard bombs into triple coverage. No swagger-fueled media theatrics. What he's shown instead is something Cleveland hasn't had in 2 decades. Stability. His throws are tight. His reads are smart. His feet are quiet. And most impressively, he's unshaken by the madness around him. The Browns have become a graveyard for quarterbacks. In the last 25 years, over 35 different men have started under center for Cleveland. That's more than any team in the NFL. That's not a stat, that's a warning label. And yet, Shedeur walks through that minefield with steel in his spine. He doesn't demand headlines. He demands results. He doesn't chase drama. He chases reps. He doesn't hide behind his father's name. He honors it. The verdict is still out, but the test has begun. Whether Shedeur Sanders becomes the guy or fades into another forgotten face on Cleveland's dusty quarterback timeline is a story still waiting to be written. But make no mistake, this is not sabotage. This is trial by fire. The Browns aren't putting him out there to embarrass him. They're putting him out there because the storm has cleared just long enough for him to step into the sunlight. And if you believe Joe Thomas, if you believe what you've seen at camp, if you believe that greatness isn't always loud, it's quiet and relentless, then you know what's coming. Shedeur Sanders has been tested, overlooked, questioned. But now he's being watched. And that's the beginning of something far bigger than a preseason start. That's the beginning of a quarterback era in Cleveland that might finally be worth believing in.